So the last presentation of the day is Sarah Buck from our RCAP, the National or the Rural Community Assistance Partnership, who funds my work, and she's with the national office. And the other part of the presentation, there'll be two, is by me about our collaboration and partnerships and some of the things we've learned about doing collaboration and partnerships. And so the title is Collaboration Opportunities and Developing Partnerships.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Buck. I'm the Senior Director of Programs at the Rural Community Assistance Partnership, or RCAP. Today I'm here to talk a little bit about our training and technical assistance for private wells. Although many of you may know about RCAP, I wanted to talk a little bit about our network of organizations. We've sort of been in and out of the conference, but wanted to make sure that I share a little bit about our background and what it is that we do. So RCAP, or the Rural Community Assistance Partnership, we are a network of 7 different nonprofit organizations. We have a national office that's based in DC, and then 6 regional offices with over 300 technical assistance providers all across the country, where we serve all 50 states, the U.S. territories, and tribal lands. Our goal as a network is to improve rural quality of life. We do this through the provision of training, technical assistance, capacity building for small, rural, and tribal communities. Traditionally, that is really focused on water, wastewater, and solid waste, although in recent years, we've been diversifying our programming and have added additional services in community and economic development. The private well program is strong, small, but mighty, and it is mostly funded by the Environmental Protection Agency, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. But RCAP does not do that work alone. We have worked with a number of great strategic external partners to make the private well work happen. Here is the list of our current partners. The top of the list is University of Illinois. They've been a partner since the beginning of this work, and they're obviously the host of this great conference. We also are partnering with the National Environmental Health Association, the National Groundwater Association, the Water Systems Council, Texas A&M University, Pennsylvania State University, the University of Rhode Island, and Virginia Tech. So a little bit about our EPA programming. The private well funding has traditionally been under EPA's Small Systems National Priority Area number 4, although starting this fall, it's going to be NPA 3 instead. There's been sort of a shift in that, but wanted to kind of explain the nuance there. But nonetheless, we're finishing a 36-month program at the end of this federal fiscal year in September. We have an overlapping 18-month program that started last fall and is going through the end of March 2022. And then we're starting a new program this fall in the beginning of October, which will also be 18 months long. The focus of this programming is really technical assistance, training, and resources for homeowners, sanitarians, other well professionals, and key stakeholders. Right now, the funding level is about at 1.7 million, but we're advocating with our partners for an increase to the program up to 3 million in the upcoming federal budget so that we can provide additional needed services to more underserved well owners. There are lots of well owners out there, and a lot of them are in need of services, and we want to be able to help as much as we can. A little bit about results and outputs from the work that we have been doing over the last couple years. So our program that's coming to an end this fall, we just finished quarter 10 at the end of April. And through that period of time, with that particular grant funding, we completed over 600 well assessments in 35 states. We provided 23 trainings to well owners specifically, over 650 of them. We also completed 39 trainings for private well and environmental health professionals and stakeholders with a total of almost 1,000 participants. RCAP's project partners have conducted 100 of their own workshops in addition to all of that, and they've done well owner education at 33 community events. Our university extension partners specifically have expanded their training reach and have helped over 2,000 well owners sample their wells for water quality. All of our project partners have provided thousands of phone-based chat and email responses to well owners, are developing and updating guides, provided trusted guidance, and publishing resources, many of which are available in both English and Spanish. Our current programming that we're not quite halfway through with, that ends next March. As I mentioned, it's a $1.7 million program, and we're anticipating doing at least 12 workshops for well owners, 18 workshops for private well and environmental health professionals and other key stakeholders, 420 well assessments in at least 18 states, but we usually surpass that state and territory goal. And then for the first time ever, we will be piloting a well testing program for constituents of concern for wells that are particularly questionable and not in great condition when we go out and do our well assessments. So some of you may be aware, but not all of you. Depends on how often you've come to this conference in the past and how closely you might partner with the University of Illinois or RCAP, but you might be wondering, what is this well assessment thing that she's talking about? So well assessments are something that were developed through this program with U of I really taking the lead on that with a number of other key partners. They were really designed based on the concept of a full sanitary survey that is done for a water system. The well assessment looks at the construction of the well, it looks at history, it looks at its current condition, as well as the surroundings that could potentially impact it. You know, the purpose is really to identify existing and potential threats that could impact water quality and public health. Through this, we're able to provide technical assistance and education so that well owners can make informed decisions to make needed improvements and can also understand the needed ongoing maintenance and be able to actually implement those best practices to take care of their wells moving forward. Although some of our partners have been doing sampling, traditionally RCAP has not been doing sampling as part of the well assessment, but it does ask if any testing has occurred and what the results of that were, and if that may impact the analysis that our staff in the field do when they go out and do the assessments. So what's new? As we've been doing this program for a number of years, we continue to diversify what we're doing, adding new pieces of the program, trying out new things based on the need that we hear from the field. So as I mentioned, we have been doing a sampling pilot with our newer funding, and it's been successful and well received. So because of that, there's a lot of demand for it. So we have expanded that with our new funding that's going to start in the fall. So we'll be doing significantly more sampling that's almost as much as the number of well assessments that we're going to be doing. Also, with this current grant and the future one, we are purchasing groundwater models and 3-dimensional or 2-dimensional wellhead models for education and outreach events to give better visuals so that folks can more easily understand some of the concepts. You've heard during this conference as well that there's going to be a new National Private Well Working Group that the University of Illinois has agreed to organize and help to run, that's supported by this program. Also, we have expanded to add flexibility so that training can be traditional classroom style, but also because of COVID and so that we can reach some of the harder to reach populations, we have been virtualizing that. And then also we've expanded that to include community education and outreach events so that we can really reach homeowners where they're at. Also, the Private Well Conference that U of I has been putting on through this program every other year is going to become an annual event so that we can get together and learn together with more frequency. Partnerships. Partnership is in our organization's name. It's something that's really important to us. And as you can see by the number of partners that are part of this grant program, it has been the key to the success of this work. And we have had some unique and valuable partnerships at the national, regional, state, and local level. This program has been used to build capacity and allow us to leverage additional partnerships and philanthropic as well as public support. We've been able to do some strategic blending of our private well work with the on-site and decentralized wastewater work that we also have funded by EPA. Not every well owner has a septic system or vice versa, but there is a lot of overlap. And if you can get those people in the same room, oftentimes they really would like to learn about both, especially since, as we know, wells and septic tend to have a lot of impact on one another, especially if they're installed really close together. Also, some of our RCAP regions receive USDA funding so that they can lend that out to private well owners for construction and treatment. And we've also worked to advocate so that that can be expanded to not only be for water, but can include septic as well, which we saw as a large need. So how do you access these services? Some of you may already have relationships with us or some of the partners or some of the RCAP regions, but just as an FYI, one of the things that we do with our EPA funding is that in the first quarter of each grant year, we set up kickoff meetings with the primacy and regulatory agencies as well as other relevant agencies and loop in the EPA regional staff to discuss different drinking water and wastewater priorities. And in doing that, we often have conversations as well about private wells. You can contact your local RCAP regional headquarters or the state-specific staff that you're aware of. If you don't know who that is, you can go to the websites that were on the map slide earlier, or you can reach out to us at National or to Steve and his team of U of I, and we'll make sure to connect you with the best local contact needed. So thank you for your attention. Hopefully learning a little bit more about RCAP and our private well work and all of our partners and what we're doing on the ground is helpful. I'm happy to answer questions, and here's my contact information if anybody would like to follow up. Thanks and have a great day.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Sarah, for explaining basically the logistics of RCAP's program and the collaboration opportunities and the things that we've done with our partners. What I hope to do in my portion of the talk is get into a little more detail about some of the opportunities that we've already had with collaborating with different entities, especially at the local level, as well as some of the partnerships that we've developed and some of the good things that have come out of that. Again, I'm Steve Wilson from the State Water Survey. So I do want to mention first, Sarah asked me to mention in her part of the slide, she'd already turned in her recording and she'd left Jason Barrett off, or Mississippi State off the partner list. They are a partner in RCAP's grant. And I just want to mention, I've known Jason for 8 or 9 years. He's a great partner. He's been great to me. We've done a lot of work together. I participate in some of his county events, and he's one of those type of people that it's been great to watch his program grow. And I hope that we're still working together 8 years from now, and hope we're all still doing the same stuff. So I want to mention a little bit about the State Water Survey. I don't think I've done that yet here. We started in 1895 because of cholera and typhoid outbreaks, and so we've got a long history of public health protection and working on those issues. This map is a map I show a lot in our webinars of a typhoid case in Pana, Illinois. It's a small town now of about, I think, 1,500 or so, where the Water Survey investigated in 1916 why they had this typhoid outbreak, and it turned out it was a milk vat that everybody shared the same bucket to get milk out of this large tank at the Pana Ice Cream Company. We started in 1895 to evaluate the water quality of the state by our state legislature, and this is one of our lab folks in 1930. And it just speaks to the history we have. We had our 125th anniversary last year, and we do a lot of work around the state providing public service as well as the research that we do. We have a public service lab, I mentioned that, and we also house the state's well logs. So with this program and our ability to go do more outreach and education around the state and around the country, our focus has really been on how do we develop collaborative relationships with other professionals who are working every day with well owners. We started the private well class to be a class for well owners, and we quickly learned that, and I mentioned this in one of the other talks, I believe, that we need to reach out also to the professionals who are working with them. And so we've tried to really do that. We helped build our RCAP's program with them, and we built a program that we believe really promotes these ideals. Up in the upper right is our 2017 conference. The Clean Water Celebration on the bottom right, or left, excuse me, is there's 2,700 kids that come to this every year, except this last year, in Peoria at their Civic Center. We also participate in the state fair and take our groundwater models there, which I know RCAP has just purchased groundwater models for all their regional staff. They're really a great tool. When you can put some dye in there and show people how it moves through the sand and gravel or the bedrock, it really makes the point and takes it home. And then the picture on the right, actually, wow, I am backwards. The picture on the left is is a demonstration we did with about 9 county health departments in Illinois, where we had a driller who volunteered his time and all that bentonite on that pallet, and we did a well sealing event. And so some of the county sanitarians or EHPs got CEUs for that, and we were also able to video that and create a 5 or 6 minute video on how to seal and abandon an old large diameter well in Illinois at least. So we try to do as many of these projects and participate in these events as possible, and so it's really helped us in growing our program. So I want to go back. I know I mentioned this several times probably in the other presentations I gave, but the 2 biggest issues I see are poor well construction and lack of well owner knowledge and education. And I think a number of you probably agree, especially with those things. We run into well owners who don't have a lot of information about their well and don't seem that interested in learning. And so that is a challenge for us to do outreach and education to change that dynamic, if you will. And so, there's a lot of reasons why well owners don't test. And we did a project where some of this information came out for CDC, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But, they believe their groundwater's safe. It's just human nature. Why don't people go to the dentist or the doctor when they need to sometimes? Because they're worried about what they're going to find out. All those sorts of things. It's better to worry and not know. It seems like that's the human nature we all have. Cost or perceived costs. The costs for treatment, not only the testing, but treatment can really be a barrier. We've heard, or I hear all the time about, I've drank this for years, all that sort of stuff. Just a lack of understanding, or don't trust the government, that independence, and they haven't seen anyone get sick. And so back in 2014 or 15, we were funded by CDC to do a project to look at why well owners don't test. And the proposal we wrote was to interview other programs that have done education and outreach or testing for private well owners to evaluate what they did right, what they did wrong, what they would do differently, all those things. And so part of that project, we ended up surveying 91 programs and asked them those questions along with a bunch of others, trying to get a feel for what made them successful or not successful, as well as reviewed all the health communication literature. And I want to mention, I believe I'm not sure if I mentioned that in another presentation or not, but 8 years ago or 9 years ago when we started this program, there just wasn't a lot of work being done on private wells. And when we looked in the health communication literature for information about outreach and education to well owners, there was very little. So we took a different tack. We started looking at risk communication for every health issue: pregnancy, smoking, heart disease, you name it, diabetes. And we broadened our search basically because we felt like many of the same interventions that health professionals would use would be similar if you were trying to promote safe drinking water. And so that really changed the game for us, and we were able to find several hundred articles to use for that. And so we also had one of our staff visit 3 well owner program workshops and meet with their staff. And I think it was Lucinda Morris, who's the lead on the paper I'm going to show you in a minute. She went to Texas, I believe Rhode Island, and maybe Penn State. And if I got that wrong, because it could have been Virginia Tech too, I apologize. But it's been a number of years ago. But the idea was we were trying to find out everything we could about what others were doing and what was in the literature so that we could come up with the best sort of practices we could and answer that question, why don't well owners test? So what we found from that work is it didn't quite work out the way we wanted. Some of the statistics we wanted to do didn't really work, but they were self-evaluated into these categories: not very successful, successful, very successful, or extremely successful. And on a number of parameters, the ones that were extremely successful had a different value that was either higher or lower, in the right direction. And so what we learned is that the programs that considered themselves not very successful on average only had 1.4 partners, and the ones that considered themselves extremely successful had 3.2 partners. And that holds true with a lot of things we've seen. It holds true with what's happened with our program and how it's grown. It really is a benefit to anyone to share the wealth, if you will. Try to find partners who bring a benefit to your program for whatever reason, not necessarily financial, just getting the word out, or a lot of other things. But you're more likely to have a successful program when you bring more people in. So the reason why partners are a good thing: they share costs, they share effort, they spread the word, and they provide local buy-in. And that last point, I can't stress enough. I've mentioned, I think I mentioned before, I've been at this for a long time, over 30 years. I did a aquifer assessment and spent 8 years out in an area where we were not welcome. By the time the project was over, I'd made a number of friends, really. People I even sent a Christmas card to, that when I met them, thought I was working for the large city that needed more water, and they were trying to protect their water supply. And over the time, I was able to flip that, and they began to trust, and I spent the time it took to get there. So fast forward almost 20 years, the water operator that I was close to is retired. He's running several civic groups. He's kind of the most well-known person in the area related to water issues. It's who everybody goes to when they have a problem. And he and I are friends. So we were asked to find 3 locations with 3 acres of land, excuse me, for a research project. And they were testing it was called a freeze shoe, and it was a way to collect an in situ sample by freezing the soil at depth when you drill, and we're drilling 200 or 300 feet wells. You collect a sample down at 200 or 300 feet in the aquifer, you freeze it with liquid nitrogen, and you pull it up. And so the water you're collecting in your sample is the water that's actually in that same core, which, you've ever done any of that work, you lose all the water when you pull a core up most of the time. So this is prime farm ground in central Illinois. No chance am I going to get farmers I don't know to give up 3 acres of land for no benefit. I mean, we're not giving them any, we don't have any money to give them to do that for this project. The only thing we can do is say that it's a research project. They've agreed to let high schools come out. Anybody who wants to come see the site, several semi-trailers and several drill rigs and all this stuff. So I went to this person, his name's Mel Plinus, and I said, Mel, here's what I need. He had all 3 sites within 2 days. And that would have never happened. We would have never found that, and it needed to be over this particular aquifer. And so that's the value of building those relationships and having partners and working together and taking an approach that we're all in this together. And I've listed here a number of partners, of possible partners that came out of the work we did for CDC and what folks put on the questionnaire we sent them about the programs they had. And there are a lot. If you can get a bank to support, maybe they fund the samples, or there's an engineering firm or some other business, and even in a small town, they are more interested in doing those things. I know some of us, especially when we were with the state, we struggle with being able to accept those kind of gifts, if you will. But as a university, we can certainly do that, or find someone else to accept the gift that you've already made a partner. There's just a lot of ways to bring people in, help with that local buy-in, all those things. So I mentioned we did a literature review, And we cataloged all the information we came up with, and we really broke it into three pieces: barriers, motivations, and communication best practices. And so I've just listed one of the pieces here. I think in the end we identified 46 barriers to change, and we made a list. This is 3 through 7. Complacency is a barrier. As long as the water looks and tastes fine, they feel that testing is necessary. And so I want to point out that the source over on the right side is, we made a list of all the literature that we actually collected for this, and that's the identification number for that particular research paper. Contradictory messages. Mass media often compounds a problem as they tend to cover both sides of a story. We've all seen that happen in cost. Potentially high cost of treatment is often a more notable barrier than the cost of testing, even if the homeowner tests their well and finds it to be contaminated. It means this research found that they're still not going to add treatment because of the cost. So we identified a number of barriers, motivations, and best practices, and we used that information to compile, to develop a paper. And so what we ended up with, and we published it in the Journal of Water and Health, is a paper. Again, Lucinda Morris was my right hand in all of this, and she went and visited all the sites and did most of the legwork on the literature review. And so the title is Methods of Conducting Effective Outreach to Private Well Owners, a Literature Review. And it not only was the literature review we did, but it was also the information we collected from those 91 programs. And so I just point that out because we were really surprised at how much this is downloaded and used. And it's a really good feeling, honestly. But it is a good approach. And if you're starting an outreach program, there's information here, and I'll go through a little bit of it, that helps you get started. And that was what we were hoping for, was to come up with an approach that would help folks who want to do outreach to well owners see really what it takes to do things and get it done right. And so this says figure 2 because they're flipped in the paper, and I took this out of the paper. But this is really a flow chart for developing an outreach program. And really the first step is to understand your audience. Are you in an urban area, a rural area? What are the problems in the area? If you're in Wisconsin, it's nitrates maybe. If you're in out east, say in New Hampshire, it's probably arsenic or uranium. So once you've done that and understand what people's feelings are about those things, the next is to identify the barriers or why they haven't tested. And so that's, that's a big theme always at our conference. And once you've identified those barriers, then you can select ways that will motivate those folks to test. But as you get down this and start developing your program, it's critical to build partnerships so that you can develop that trusting relationship. And a couple of things I've said here, we believe these are the critical steps to be successful. And also, you really have to be in it to win it. What I mean by that is, we see sometimes programs where they get a grant and they work on something for 2 or 3 years and then they walk away because the money walks away. Well owners need you to always be there, especially if you've sampled their well. You might get a call from them 5 or 10 years later. And so you have to be willing to accept that challenge of being involved even when the resources aren't there. If you're going to try to have a program that builds trust, you become a reliable resource. People have to get to know you to understand if they can trust you or not. And most of us don't have the leg up because we're with the university, we're considered eggheads, or with the state government, we're considered regulators and we're going to turn off their well, all those sorts of things. And so it's important to take the time, like I mentioned for this study, it was called McTAS, it was an Aquifer assessment. I was totally not trusted when I went out there. And it took a long time to win people over, but eventually I did. And, I grew up in the country on a small farm. That worked to my benefit in that case. And you use what you can. So the other figure is just about barriers. And we've identified 4 types of barriers: knowledge, risk perception, barriers of inconvenience, and personal or social barriers. And it's really in that order. If they don't know about the risk, they're not feeling threatened, they don't understand even, if it gets to the being convenient or not. We do every year during Groundwater Awareness Week, we draw a name for people who've signed up and we pay for a water test. And they have to go ahead and get the test done themselves and show that they've done it. And then they sign up and they pledge to test. That's the name of the program. we had someone who really struggled getting their test done because of the barrier of inconvenience. They worked during the day. There was only one lab in the area. So there's a lot of reasons why people don't test. And as you work through this list, I would say the first two are really on all of us. No one should have knowledge barriers or risk perception barriers if we all can bring that message. And I know I talked yesterday about, or not yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday because that's a Wednesday talk, on those issues as far as what we need to do in order to get people interested and understand the risks that they have. I lost my train of thought there. I apologize. So I want to switch gears. That's kind of that piece of this presentation. I want to talk a little bit about all the partners on RCAP's grant, and I know Sarah listed them in her talk, but I wanted to get into a little more detail and make sure everyone's aware of things that each of these groups do. One of the, so like NGWA, the wellowner.org website is really popular. It's got a lot of, it's basic information, but it's a lot of good starter information for a well owner. They put out a tip sheet every month. They do webinars and videos. And two of the big things they have is their tip sheet and Groundwater Awareness Week. It's always the second week of March. I think this last March was the 21st year. And it's a huge program. Literally nearly 1,000, I believe, organizations participate. And so it's something that we all should participate in and highlight groundwater during that week. And they're one of the partners on RCAP's grant. Another is the Water Systems Council. They have a well care hotline. I know I just asked Margaret not too long ago about how many calls they got in 2020, and it was over 2,000. And so that hotline, actually, the EPA's website goes right to them. And they have tons of useful information, fact sheets and brochures on their website if you go there. They have a really cool well owner manual as well. And I mentioned the Groundwater Trust, which is kind of an offshoot group of the Water Systems Council. But they provide, for low income folks, they can put in a well for them. And you can go to their website and see all that information. NEHA, Tarek gave a lightning talk. They have this private well network is kind of the big thing they're doing now, but they also house our class, our private well class that we developed. There's a version on their webpage in their e-learning center that's for EHPs and home inspectors where they can get CEs by taking those lessons. And that's a huge deal because it's free. And so it drives more EHPs to learn more about private wells. And with their national accreditation program, that supports us and all our other groups and allows sanitarians or EHPs around the country to get credit for participating in these programs. So they're great partners. They're all national associations or groups. And I know she mentioned the 5 university programs that are state extension. And we chose to work with these 5 because they already have a private well program that's very active through other funding. And so rather than RCAP folks coming into those states and start working on the same issues, it made a lot more sense to provide a little funding to each of these programs so they could extend the number of workshops and the number of samples. And I know Sarah mentioned in her talk, I think it was 2,000 samples if I recall. And so that's just from these 5 programs, which is really awesome. And it's that many people that can be helped in those states. And it allows the RCAP folks in those regions to work on other things. So with us, we do monthly webinars. We have our class. You can call us. If I don't have an answer, I find an answer. And if it's something in a local area, I find a local person to work with you. We get, I think we had almost 1,500 contacts with well owners last year. We have this brochure. I think I mentioned that the first day, but it's a great tool to pass out to well owners, and you can put your own logo on it. We go and speak at events. People ask us to come present, and we went all over the country to do that, and we're glad to do it. If anyone needs any of the materials we've developed as far as the presentations, we gladly give those away. And we're also willing to host webinars, and we do it all the time for other groups, even for nonprofits that may be getting into the private well work or need help understanding things about private wells. We'll put on a webinar just to give them some of the basic information we have and get them started. So I do want to mention RCAP. That's the rest of my presentation. So look at this map. You know what state you live in and understand which region you belong to. So I'm in Illinois, so it's the Great Lakes Community Action Partnership. So all 6 of these regions are their own nonprofit, but they're all affiliated with the national office, which is the star here at RCAP, the Rural Community Assistance Partnership. And each has a lead that I work with on the private well program, and there's actually a lot more staff than that work on this. But I want to point out one of the things that this whole message today is about is developing partnerships and collaboration. These are people you should work with in your state. That's my message to you. And so now I know Dave Miller at Communities Unlimited, I believe he's leaving that organization. And so if you are in one of the Communities Unlimited states in the South, you can contact me or Sarah, and we can direct that information or try to help set something up with who might be his replacement. But the other 5 folks here, Cindy Brooks, Great Lakes, Jesse Campbell from MAP, Mark Johnson from RCAP Solutions, which is the Northeast, Jeremy Parasol from RCAC, which is the Western RCAP, and Joe Fields from the Southeastern RCAP. I believe all those folks are at the conference, or they have been at least for part of it. Reach out to them. They're all great folks. They're all engaged with well owners. And so I'll show the map again, just so you know which region. And if you don't remember who it is, email me or put it in the chat and someone will answer. There's a number of RCAP folks here today, and we'll get you to the right person and make that introduction. So there's a lot of opportunities with RCAP. So, the program that funds what I do is funded by US EPA. And through the EPA Technical Assistance and Training Grant Program for private wells, RCAP does these things. They put on workshops for well owners and professionals. They do on-site well assessments, and they do limited water quality testing, which Sarah mentioned is going to be expanded after October this year. And we list some of this information on our website, so you can get to their webpage if you want to go to privatewellclass.org. I just showed, this is the well assessment tool. This is one of the pages on the site inspection that was done. And it's just an idea of, the well assessment's its own animal. And they've done over 2,500 of these, and it's really become quite a tool for helping well owners understand their well. The regions, though, also, as I mentioned, they're independent nonprofits. They've all got other funding, and everyone is a little different. Several can give low-income loans for fixing a well, fixing a septic now, as well as putting in a new well through the USDA program. RCAC in California can also help put in a well because of the drought through a grant from the state of California. Some do septic training and outreach or local education events. All of these things, collaborative testing. I know RCAP Solutions has a program with the state of Vermont where they're doing collaborative testing and doing well assessments at the same time. And then also partner events and workshops. I guess I got ahead of myself there. Co-op sampling projects. So there's a lot of things going on even at the state or local level with these regions and their staff. And so, there's a lot of opportunity. If you need a speaker, you want to put on a workshop, they can do some of the logistics for you. All those sorts of activities, that's what our program is really about. Showing this slide, these are all, so I asked all the regional leads to give me a list of their partners. I just said 6 to 10, but a few of them gave me a bigger list of all the partners they've worked with over the last 5 years or so. And so I narrowed it down to this list by not listing every single one, because there's a number of water well associations and a lot of state environmental health associations and state agencies, but it's a really wide group, including Indian Health Service and the USGS, which are both federal agencies, soil and water conservation districts, individual communities, citizens groups. There was a number of those, and so they're working with people that are interested and come to them or who want to make a difference for the people they serve, especially groups like realtors. If we can educate realtors, which we do a webinar every year for realtors, on why it's important to help people sample before they sell, not try to hide it, all those sorts of things. it makes things just much better. And so that's what I'll leave you with that. Again, I talked a little long probably, but we do still have time left. And, what we should all strive to do is develop new partnerships and collaborate whenever we have the opportunity. Our goal would be eventually the lines start to blur on who's working on what. And we all know we can work with each other on any given thing, and eventually those lines will go away. And, that's our vision and what we want to happen. We have some resources, and so we can certainly facilitate a lot of those things, and that's what we're trying to do. Thank you, and with that, we'll take any questions. Oh, shit. Sorry about that. I had turned my thing off. Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
Not bad, Steve.
So at the moment, we don't have any questions. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add. I know I got to watch your talk before I put mine together, but you didn't get to see mine. So I just wondered if anything you want to add.
No, I mean, I just, am really happy that we are continuing to have this great partnership, and hopefully Congress will support our request to increase the program a little bit. And it's really exciting to see also, that in addition to our federal funds, that a number of our regional folks are leveraging that to get foundation funding and other local funding to provide, additional service to all the well owners that are out there. We actually did some internal planning and talking about our focus in water and wastewater and where we want to go as RCAP at the national office, and in private wells came up a lot as something that we really want to continue to do more work on because the need is so huge. So definitely excited to continue.
Okay, well, it's quarter 3, and if anyone has any follow-up questions you haven't thought of today, or you think of them in a few minutes, you can put those in the chat. Or you can reach out to any of us. I know someone asked earlier today, and I have to confirm, but I'm pretty sure we're providing contact information for everyone who registered. And so, I'll talk to Jennifer about that. She's in charge. So what I think we'll go ahead and do is do our wrap up. And so we can hopefully be finished by 3. We just had a thunderstorm start here, so hopefully nothing will happen, but it was pretty loud a few minutes ago. So I'm getting a couple comments. Thanks for the conference and all that stuff. We really enjoy this. As we talked with Brian earlier about the difference between in-person and virtual, one of the things that I meant to say and I forgot is that what we see are events like ours where we don't have an exhibit hall, I know I was talking earlier to Jennifer Tolley about the Small Systems Conference every year in Cincinnati. Those type of events where there's really not an exhibitor element probably would be best served, and maybe are best served by having it virtual because you're going to get a lot more attendance. But what we see, like with our state section of AWWA and our Water Environment Association group, many of the state associations rely on those exhibit halls and exhibitor funds for their annual conference to help their organization stay afloat. And so, in August, we're going to start going out to conferences that are in person as exhibitors. And I think that's going to be where the difference lies in a lot of this, where you have exhibitors and you have that revenue stream for a given association. You're probably going to see those things be back in person sooner. And for the rest of us, it may not be as much so. So that's I've got a few things to say here to wrap up. Someone asked, is there a copy of the presentations available? I believe we're making all of that available, both the PowerPoint and the recording. You can get to the recordings by going back to the session. We're trying to make that available 2 hours later, is my understanding. So if you go back to the sessions from Tuesday, you should be able to see the full recordings. And Socio is an interesting platform in that we can only hold our conference for the days we've said, but it's actually access to this, I believe, is open for a longer time. So if you have a login, you can come back and watch the recordings and some of those things. I'm making sure there's no questions, but I've got a few slides here, and I'm going to go through those real quick. So there we go. Did I skip one? I always worry I just skipped one. No, I did not. Okay. Full sessions are now in Socio. U of I requires us to caption all our videos. So like every webinar we do, we have to send it and get captioned. And we do that once every 6 months and send about 6 to 10 in. So we'll get all these captioned and we'll put them on our YouTube page. So there'll be a similar channel to like our 2017 conference and 2019 conference. And so we'll have that up. Did want to mention that if you didn't attend the Flash Mastermind, we had about 75 people there, and it was a really well done thing in the end. We were really worried, honestly, not doing anything like that before, but it was nice skipping. We skipped 3 times to different rooms or 4 times. And so I met 10 or 15 people, most of some I knew, some I didn't. And it really, the mastermind part really worked out well. Some good ideas came out of it. It's worth watching. That 2-hour session, all the individual parts are out, but the 45-minute takeaways is what we've recorded and is there and is available. The evaluation. So this is important for a number of reasons. Not only about the content we provided and the speakers, what you liked and didn't like, and whether there's a couple questions about this virtual experience. You know, Brian brought that up in his talk about it was an overwhelming response that people preferred virtual. I get that from the standpoint of not having travel funds, especially. And so, you know, I'm sure we'll look at trying to do things like streaming if we do have it live and or in person and all those things. But also, we're looking for your opinions and ideas for the next conference. 2 things really. Which would you prefer, virtual or online? And also, what topics would you be interested in for the next conference? And don't just throw out the 3 things you're interested in today, because if they were covered in the 2017 or 2019 conference or today, we won't cover those again unless there's something new to share. And they're already online. There are already videos you can watch. You should go look at those. You know, like Barb Lukonen, I don't think she's here today, but she did a study that we use a lot and reference a lot on well owner attitudes. And she was the first speaker we had at our 2017 conference. And if you haven't seen her presentation, that's as an example. You should go watch that for sure. Okay, I'm going to look at these questions before I go any further. What Brian had to say here. One of the big unanswered questions about in-person conferences is how willing people to return. And, you know, I think that if we interview the folks that went to our first 2 conferences, many of them will talk. One of the first things they'll mention is all the networking that happened and all the goodwill and getting to know each other. You know, it was a small group. It was about 125 people both times, and we all got to know each other. We went out together for dinner at night. You know, it's an EPA grant, so we can't provide food, but it's a free conference. So there's a good and bad there. But I think everyone who's attended, it was a great experience. And I'm like Brian, I've been around a while, and I like talking and being around people in person. I think you'll learn a lot more and find out more about who they are and the type of person they are than you get at a conference like this. But anyway, that's just my own opinion. All right, and you can read the comments that are coming in. I'll keep going on the that. I think I have one more slide here. Oh yeah. So as Sarah mentioned, we've done the conference every 2 years. Honestly, in 2017, there was, you know, it was wide open for us to pick what we wanted to talk about because we didn't know of any national conference on private wells that had been delivered before. So we've been through 3 now, and so we've covered some of the topics. Some certainly need covered again, but some things, you know, we had someone come and talk about springs. Judy Manners from Tennessee in 2017. It's an important issue, and I've learned through this program there are a lot more springs in the country than I realized. And so it is a huge issue because people swear by their springs, even when they have, you know, back counts in the thousands. So things like that you can learn a lot from the work that Judy's already done. We've tried to always have this the week after graduation at the U of I. And that just by happenstance, we wanted to have the first one in Champaign. And until the week after graduation, there are no hotels available. And we're a small town. And so that was the decision. And it's worked out really well. And so we're probably going to stick with it. It is likely going to be in person. It's likely going to be somewhere in the Western U.S. or on the West Coast. And that's because we've had one in the center part of the state or of the country, and one 2019 was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And so we're going to try to move it around. And if I had odds to bet where it'd be in 2023, it's probably going to be in Minnesota. Minnesota Department of Health has been a great working group for us and provide a lot of resources and evaluated our program. And they've really wanted us to have it there. They've got a lot to share with all of us. And so that's where I'm leaning anyway. And I'm certainly interested in hearing what other folks have to say about that. So lastly, thank you to everyone who's attended, especially our speakers. For some folks, it may be the first time that you've ever had to put together an online talk. And some of us, are kind of veterans at it, but it's intimidating. And there's no doubt about that. So I really appreciate everyone who took the time to record their event and then also show up so that you could answer questions. I do think it's the right way to run an event like this, though, just because of issues with internet and all those things. And you can plan in advance. And even when you try to plan, sometimes things happen. Like if you were around for the talk that started over yesterday, I think that was yesterday, might have been Tuesday. But those things happen. It makes things. It's why we're all human. So it was really at the time it sort of freaked me out, but by the end of the conference that day, we realized it wasn't that big of a deal. And so really, and for making our virtual virtual conference, I wrote that wrong, didn't I? Our virtual pivot successful this year. Yeah, it wasn't what we planned. And, COVID has changed a lot of people's plans. But I think a lot of good has come out of that in this respect. What we've learned, watching Brian's talk today, things we never thought would happen, it turns out, human nature takes over. And I want to echo what Brian said about people not wanting to read. We get so many comments now about our class because it's a PDF that gets sent once a week for 10 weeks to anyone. So it's self-paced. So many people comment that they wish there was videos. And that's just the world we live in today. And I still don't live in that world. So, I think that's all we have. Yep, that's what I've got. So thank you, everybody. We'll leave this open for a little bit. So, in 2019 in Harrisburg, we found Katie made a comment here about, I miss the garbage can pong. So if you've, many of us went out one night and there was a open air bar that had garbage cans set up for garbage can beer pong. And you use, I think it was volleyballs. And it was, there must have been 20 people from the conference there, and we all had a really great time. So it's those, it's called King Kong beer pong. I apologize. And so those are the kind of things that you can't get from a virtual conference, I guess. And so, all right. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And we had a lot of fun.